What is up, everyone? It's that time again. You're listening to It's Been a Week. I'm your host, Ben McDonald, and this is your weekly dose of whatever the hell just happened. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to It's Been a Week. This week, I have one of my dear friends that we met in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, after a few martinis in the pool. And you also have heard her other friend, Jen, who was on our Mother's Day episode. So please welcome Diane.
Thank you.
How are you? How has your week been?
It's been good. I actually stayed home in Folsom, California. I'm hardly ever home, but I had a bunch of parties and social activities to do, and
Yeah, I
had
feel
a
like
good
you're
time.
never really home.
I'm not, so I'm always on the go.
It's kind of more fun, I feel like, to stay busy and just kind of bounce around.
It is. I love it.
So we met in Mexico in the glorious pool of the Casa Dorada, and we were having
Yes.
cocktails. And obviously, I had known Jen and Tanya and that group from the year, I think it was the year prior.
Yes,
Right?
and I think I was actually there that year, but I wasn't in the pool introduction
Isn't that, I mean,
because
that
I didn't
was like,
remember you guys. They go, "Don't you remember we met them last year?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know. Too many margaritas."
yeah, too much alcohol in the sun. Well, listen, this podcast is it's supposed to be a comedy podcast. We talk about all the bullshit that happens every week, and it's supposed to be funny, but, you know, it's been a week. Not every week is funny and full of just, sunshine and roses. So there are times like people come on here and we talk about a little more serious stuff. And when I met you, or at least one of my favorite memories, is we were out at the bar in Mexico. I think we had been out all day in the pool, and then we were continuing on into the town. And we're in this bar. There's dollar bills. I don't know why there's dollar bills taped all over the wall, but there's dollar bills everywhere. And then all of a sudden, Beyoncé comes on. And I don't know what came out of me, but I launched on top of that bar so fast. There was like a pole. And then I turn around and you're right up there with me. And we were like shaking and dancing and having the best 3 minutes dancing to this Beyoncé song, I think, ever. And then we get down and we were just laughing. And you were like, I love your energy. Like, you're just so fun. I said, you know what? You got to have fun every day. You just got to live and have fun every day. And I'll never forget, you looked at me and you were like, I love that you said that. And you're like, because I've lost my son, and I just totally think that that's the best way to live life. So
Really
I'll never forget that moment. And, I want to share. I don't even know all the details of the whole story. I know parts of it, but I do want, I want you to kind of start from the beginning of it and, like walk us through this story. Cause I think it's an important story to be told.
Yeah. Well, my son only lived to be 22 years old. And so he also lived every day to the fullest. It's like he almost knew he was on a time clock. And he came to this world really fast. It was my first pregnancy, and he came 3 weeks early. I had him out in the middle of nowhere, almost had him in front of a bunch of cows. I didn't even make it to a hospital. So he came into this world fast, and he ended up leaving fast. But what happened was, when he was 7, he'd been having some health issues like seizures and stuff, and we couldn't figure out what was wrong. And he got diagnosed with a disease called Adrenoleukodystrophy, also known as ALD. And it was kind of made famous by a movie Nick Nolte and Susan Sarandon called Lorenzo's Oil. I don't know if
Okay.
But so when he was 7, I was still married to his father, and they told us that he might not live to be 10 because of this disease. So we got really involved. We started a foundation called Cure ALD Foundation, and I got involved with the Adones who were portrayed in that movie, and I was on the Mylan Project board and met with lots of scientists, and did that for years. And then while I was in that process of doing that, I really got into natural medicine. So instead of sending him to get a bone marrow, which, I have a girlfriend who her son had the same disease, and he died from the bone marrow transplant. So we decided not to do anything like that with Wyatt. We just said, we're going to encourage him and tell him how strong he is. And, he did every kind of natural medicine. I mean, I took him to everything. I even took him, it was pretty crazy, but I took him to Brazil to see a spiritual healer. So, I mean, I was
Oh,
just like, you'll do anything when your kids might die. You're going to do whatever you can do to try to save them. So I did all that.
100%.
Yeah. And he had a really good life. He went to college, he competed in gymnastics. And then I had learned a lot about the disease, and I knew there was a childhood version. That's the ones that die around 10 to 12. And then there was an adult version called AMN. And I thought, I think he has the adult version. So obviously he lived to be 22 from a car accident. But at 21, he started to get symptomatic of the adult version. So what would happen is the myelin is, instead of affecting so much in the brain, it affects in the spinal cord. So he lost the use of his right hand, and he was right-handed, and he could still walk, but he walked with a limp. He was still working out, but obviously he couldn't do gymnastics. He couldn't do the things he used to do. And when he first got symptomatic, he could still wakeboard and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So this happened right after he turned 21. And then he got really into tattoos. I'm not a tattoo girl. And as soon as he turned 21, it was one tattoo after another. And we have family who are really into tattoos from North Carolina. And so he asked his Uncle Joe if he would get a matching tattoo with him. And so they came out for Christmas in 2017 and, did all the Christmas festivities. And then on the 27th, they had their appointment to go get their matching tattoos. So I think my children's father drove them down there. Joe and his wife were there. I had just returned home from Tahoe. I saw Wyatt on his way to the appointment because he wanted me to come by, and he gave me his gifts to me, my Christmas gifts, because he had spent some time in Tahoe with me for Christmas, but he forgot them. So just hours before the appointment, I went by and he gave me my gifts and he showed me everything he got for Christmas and all that kind of stuff. And, gave me a wonderful long hug and went off to do the tattoo. And the appointment ran late and it was down in Sacramento. And a Kings game had let out and just all kinds of crazy things happened at the same time. His dad has always been early to bed, early to rise. So he'd gone home already and told the two of them to catch a Lyft or an Uber.
Hmm.
And my son had called, like, it was like 10 o'clock at night, 10:15. He had called a Lyft. And not knowing, none of us knew this back then, when you call Lyft, you might see a rating, but unless you push a couple more buttons, you don't see the experience of the driver. And my son happened to be this man's very first ride. So I think he was from Afghanistan. I don't know how long he'd been in our country, but I ended up finding his driver's test at the crash site. Like, he was so new to driving people. And anyway, so my son called him and he picked him and Joe up, and they started, they from the very start, they went a different direction because the Kings game had let out and maybe there was a different accident or just traffic. But as we found out, the man really didn't know how to drive. Like, he could have turned, going from Sacramento, they were trying to get back to Lincoln or Loomis, and there are so many ways to go. He ended up on Highway 99, and there's I think they said during the trial, there are 6 times he could have turned right to get them home in that direction to Placer County. But for whatever reason, he turned left on Highway 99. And some other people were on the way to the airport to pick up family, and they just T-boned him. And my son was in the front seat next to the Lyft driver, and Joe was right behind Wyatt in the passenger seat. And it was like a Toyota Sienna van, so it wasn't a small car, but they were hit by more like a truck. I think it was 4Runner or something. But and so, they were hit. My son died at the scene, and then Joe was hospitalized and in a coma for about 3 months before he passed.
Oh,
So very tragic.
wow. Well, first of all, I mean, I'm so sorry. Like, that's
Yeah.
awful. Um, so many questions before we even get into what happened after all this. Did
Yeah,
the Lyft driver, did he survive?
he did. He did, and he had a family, a wife, and, he he's had more children since then because what happened was we decided to do a lawsuit against Lyft because they really hadn't vetted this driver, and,
Mhm.
um, but COVID came along, and so the way it happened, it took forever to go to court. So and I learned a lot about him and I knew, he had more children between that accident and when I think it was 2021 by the time we went to court. But it was interesting. He did go into the hospital. He wasn't there very long. And we had created like a memorial at the crash site out on Highway 99. And we built a cross and all my friends were showing up for me. And, we were praying and, excuse me. It was really cool because his family came out, and I think there was only one there was a lot of them. His wife, kids, and, extended family, and only one knew English, but I had a group of my friends, and we were doing a circle around the crash site and holding hands, and we were gonna pray, and they wanted to know if they could pray with us, and it was really cool because they're like, "We don't know how you pray."
Right.
It's like I just thought it was really special because they were confused. She didn't understand why she didn't really understand what happened and what her husband did. And so it wasn't like anybody throwing darts or being hateful. It was just everyone praying.
Right. Oh, I mean, yeah, yeah. There's so much to dissect there. I mean, it's so funny when we're young. Our whole life we're taught never get in a car with a stranger. Never get in a car with a stranger.
Yes.
For different. Obviously, it's more like so someone doesn't get kidnapped or just strange. You just don't do that.
Right.
And now it's all we do is get in cars with strangers.
That's
Like
true.
it's all like I was just in LA. I took 7 different Ubers. Like
I
just
know.
in the last 2 days, you just get in cars and you just that's what you
Well,
do. And then
you do. But you can like I've heard my daughter told me this because she's, in that world of everyone knows who she is and she's like always get a black car and you're in a big city, mom. Get a black car cuz they're like licensed and have
yeah.
way more experience.
Yeah,
It's like
I always get a black car. I mean, it's
yeah.
obviously more, but always get that. But I will when I lived in LA before and I was like in my 20s going out to the bar all the time, I remember it's late at night, you're drunk, you call a car and you think you're doing the
Sometimes you
right.
get in the wrong car and you get in with someone that's like, "What are you doing?"
I've done that too, where they're like, this isn't your car. And I'm like, oh shit, sorry. But you think you're doing the right thing by getting in a car and not, drinking and driving or doing whatever. But yeah, it's true. If he just passed his driver's test and it's like, how is there no like there should there they even if you're driving a black car or the cheapest,
Yeah,
Lyft or Uber, there should be background checks. They should do their own driver's test. There should be so many
right.
different hoops you have to jump through because you're literally taking so many people's lives in your own hands.
And I don't think he could have understood the navigation because, when there's so many times to turn right to get them home and then he turns left and maybe he was thinking he was gonna make a U-turn, I don't really know, but, it
I mean,
just
I've
didn't.
been in the car with people who are not like they're you can tell they're not the best drivers because I'm like, what do you like turn here? Like go, and you're trying to like guide them. And I mean, look, I was just over in Europe. I don't think I could drive in Europe because they're driving on the other side of the road. The car is on the steering wheel's on the other side. But driving in a big city like Sacramento is not, like that's maybe not the best place also to start. You should maybe start out, out in the country a little bit where it's a little more not in the because city driving, if you don't know how to drive in a city, it's
Well, the
complicated.
interesting thing is where the accident happened, they were out in the country, so it was just weird, like, he was I don't know, he was just lost.
Yeah.
I really think he was. I don't think he knew what he was doing. And also Joe was in the car texting his son, Cody, saying, we're gonna stop to get Wyatt's medicine at his dad's house and then we're gonna head to Lincoln. So wait for us because this guy can't drive and we want you to drive us. So he knew we couldn't drive.
He knew it was bad. Yeah.
Yeah, he knew it was bad.
I mean
But
yeah, that's just horrific. And you said
yeah.
he with back to what was his diagnosis called, the adult version?
AMN,
And
aminopathy, which really it's kinda like he had a little bit of both because Wyatt also started to lose his ability to speak the way he did before. He would have a
Mhm.
hard knew what he wanted to say, but sometimes it would he was my son was funny, like, he'd be trying to say something, and then when he'd finally say it, it would come out with the F word in front of it because 'cause he'd be so frustrated that he
Did he
couldn't get it out. So he had a little bit of the cerebral symptoms and then more of the spine.
Okay.
Yeah, so he
But
he
I'm
knew what was going on and
but I'm sure as a mom too, when you're told, like, your kid's gonna live to 10, it's like
yes,
just from that moment on, every day is obviously a gift.
it
And then
was.
when you surpass 10 and you make it to 11 and then 12 and then, like, I just feel like, I
And he was doing so good, like, I never in a million years imagined that my son would go away to college, and he did,
right,
so that was I mean, I was always saying, "What a blessing, I can't believe he's able to do this," and
go experience that and
because
yeah,
if you listen to doctors, I mean, I'm telling you, this is what got me into natural medicine. Doctors misdiagnosed him. They wanted to do a couple different surgeries on him that had I let them do them, he would have died on the table because they didn't know until he was 7 that he had an adrenal insufficiency. That's part of the adrenoleukodystrophy. So, his adrenal glands is like Addison's disease, and if he had gone under surgery without extra cortisol, it would have killed him. So I'm just
wow,
so glad I had that good mother's intuition, and I really steered away from the Western, and they didn't have a cure. They were just kind of guessing. And I met so many scientists and they were all wonderful, but nobody was coming up with a cure.
right, which is even more difficult when you're trying to when you don't have answers and then there's no at least sometimes when you get a diagnosis or an illness, like, they're like, okay, and here's what we're going to do, here's our game plan, boom, boom, boom. But when you have something where there's no answers, that living in the unknown, I'm sure, is just
Yeah,
another level of difficult.
it was.
And I think so many of us, we always think like it could never happen to us, or you just you don't think. I guess there's times where you don't appreciate every day. But I think
Right.
when you have someone like your son, you very quickly learn to appreciate every single day, even before
Yeah.
the car accident, just with the diagnosis and stuff. I think you probably, him too, and you as a parent probably have a completely different outlook and perspective,
Yeah. Yeah,
which
for
I would
sure.
think is why we connected when I said, hey, you got to have fun every day and you just got to, laugh every day and
Yeah.
have fun. And you were like,
Yes.
because I remember you kind of stopped in your tracks and I love that you just said that. I love that you live that way. And I was like, you
Mhm.
have to.
You
And
really do, I mean, they always say if you're stuck in the past, then you're depressed. If you're always thinking about the future, you're anxious. So just stay in the moment, stay in today, and just be thankful for everything that you have. And
and I think, I mean, we're all guilty of it, even myself especially, but we all, you think that your problems are really like a problem, and then there's things
yeah,
where you hear stories like this and you look at it and you're like, my problems are nothing. Like the small stuff that we all worry about and what
that's
people
right.
think or what we have or don't have or what someone said about us or all like the stupid shit. It's like none of that matters.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. And I learned a lot. I mean, I had lost my father, so I knew that people grieve differently. And
Hmm.
I remember when that happened, everyone grieved a different way, my siblings and me and my mom. But when I lost my son, it really magnified that because it's like um, people do grieve totally differently. And they also might look at someone that's grieving in a way that they think isn't right, like
Yeah,
people might think, "Why is she out dancing on a bar and she lost her son, what's wrong with her?" Well, it's different for everyone. It really is. Some people don't handle it the same way or they don't
totally.
um I
We
know
all have
when
different coping mechanisms.
yeah. And I wasn't like that the first, I wasn't like that right away. Obviously, I was just so devastated. I wanted to die with him. Um And then, I had a daughter too that I needed to be here for. So, and she handled it, differently. She's 2 years younger than him. And, it took her about a year to really start grieving him because in her mind, her coping mechanism was he was still off at college.
Right, because it kinda was alright, like, out of sight, out of mind for a minute until it actually, like, hits you.
Yeah. And I just think it was her way of getting through it.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, my coping is definitely, like, a humor. Like, even,
Yes.
my dad, my stepdad and my biological dad died, but my biological dad, like, I'll make jokes on Father's Day being like, "Well, good thing is I don't have to buy gifts." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and some people might are like, "That's so mean," or, like, heartless, and I'm like, "But it's not. It's not. It's we all have our different way of, like, dealing or coping with things, and for me, I make light of things, I make jokes of things, even if some may
I
say
love
that's, that's inappropriate to say that about your father that's dead." I'm like, Yeah, but I can't sit here and cry over it." So you have to, like, you have to
yeah.
bring a you have to
I
you
do
have
that a lot too. I mean, I even did it at his funeral. I had people rolling at his funeral, just because there are so many good times we had and funny stories that I shared about him and our relationship. And, I mean, I don't know. You gotta laugh. You gotta laugh every day because it's always gonna be something awful happens and, you've got to figure out how to get through it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't I don't even wanna think about my funeral, but if I did have to think about it, like, I would not want people sitting there crying. I want everyone drunk and dancing and, like, laughing. I want a party for when I die. I do not want, you know what I mean? So
I'm
you
the
gotta
same.
think of the good moments and the fun,
Yes.
and also, as hard as it is, like, life moves on, like, life keeps moving, and, like, life strives forward, and like you said, you had a daughter, you still have a life that you have to live for yourself, and you still had another child, and,
Yes.
I think it's easier for a lot of people to look onto someone and be like, "I can't believe she's doing this," or judge a certain way, but until someone's going through it, I think no one has any idea.
No, they really don't. And I've had, I reach out as much as I can to other parents that I've heard that I know, or someone says, "Hey, my friend lost their child. Would you mind talking to them?" And I will absolutely do that. I just think that the other thing that really helped me and my son really when he got symptomatic is we have real strong faith in God. And, I know he went home and I'm gonna be going home one day and I'm gonna see him.
Right,
There's no doubt in my mind that we will be together. So, and I feel just so bad for the people that do lose children that don't have that belief because, it's like they just I don't know, they're just gonna be in mourning the rest of their life,
right, right.
with nothing to look forward to. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and I think, people, whether you call it God, the universe, whatever afterlife you believe in, yeah, I think you have to have some kinda knowing that, like you said, that you will be back together again, and
yeah.
that it's,
Well, and that's what I thought was so cool about that prayer circle. I don't know anything about what their religion is, but that they just wanted to pray with us, you know?
Mhm. Well, I mean, I can't imagine also, like, obviously, this guy was not a bad guy that did this on purpose.
No,
There was probably, irresponsible things maybe on, whether it's on the business side or whatever,
he's
but it
trying to
doesn't
support his family, you know?
yeah, doesn't
You got
sound like he was out there trying to hurt anyone.
no, no, I don't believe he was.
Was your son's father were you guys together at the time when this happened, or were you guys
No,
separated?
we separated or divorced, let me think. I think Wyatt was only about 9 when we split up.
Okay. And I'm
Yeah.
sure for him too I'm sure he has his own, everything, that he was there and left. I'm sure that's, like, tears him up too. Like, it's a lose situation all around.
That first year especially, you just have a lot of guilt. I mean, I had guilt because I remember, when Joe's wife, Jackie, who's my good friend, she texted me and said, "I'm giving your son mama kisses while he's getting his tattoo." And I was sitting in front of my fireplace and I just kind of started rocking and thinking, I have the strongest feeling I should be there. And I didn't get up and drive to Sacramento, but I remember thinking, I should be there. I should go down there. And I don't know why I had that feeling until after the accident.
Right.
And I was the first one to be notified. It was like 4:30 in the morning, my doorbell rang. And, I opened the door and it's a police officer and a pastor. And I knew immediately. I think the
Ugh.
first thing I said to them was, which one of my children is dead? Because, there's nobody else in my life that they would come to tell me something bad. I mean,
Mm.
you don't ever want a police officer and a pastor to knock on your door. So,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
So,
I'm so sorry. That is,
yeah.
um, so after I mean, after that happens, then the lawsuit, And then there was some more with the lawsuit was not an easy deal.
No, it wasn't. You know, Jackie had settled on Joe's death, so they never had to go to court. And, you know, they had their own business, they had 2 children in college, so hers was a little different. It's interesting how they put, values differently. So, you know, Joe's life value was considered considerably higher because he had a business, he had a family, had kids in college he was paying for and all that. So she had a different attorney too, but, she was able to settle, so then they weren't wanting willing to really give us anything for Wyatt's life, and, so we ended up going to court, going to trial, and I think it was about a 3-week trial, I can't remember, but it was a really tough time. It definitely was. Just brought everything back up again, and, um, you know, it was hard.
Yeah, because then I mean, this is now a few years later, you said, because of COVID and all the things.
Yeah, so it would have been, almost 4 years after the accident.
So, not that you're ever going to get over it, but it was probably you're finally getting 4 years, like, you're starting to get back to life and, grieve,
Yes,
and then it's like, boom, just kidding, we're gonna go back and we're gonna relive every moment, and then you
yes,
have to go through the whole thing, and I'm
yeah.
sure it was in, horrific detail. I'm sure you had to go through every second of it.
Yeah, we did, you know, and they had a lot of pictures and, you know, that they were showing the jury of the car and just all the things, you know? It was definitely hard to see.
And because of his diagnosis, they literally were like, I mean, I don't think obviously it's like it's not necessarily the dollar value, but it's like the principle. I would think
Right.
that you're gonna literally say this guy is worth X amount of dollars because he has a business in this, and this kid has a diagnosis, so he's worth to nothing because of
Yeah.
that.
It was interesting. So they awarded an amount to us from the time of the accident to the time of the trial. And then they were going to award a different amount from that point forward based on his life expectancy. And we got $0 from the date of the trial forward. They didn't award any money. They convinced the jury that my son would be already dead at the age of 26 from his disease. And, you know, I had been studying this disease since he was 7. So I knew, I mean, I found men in their 50s that had what he had. So I knew that wasn't the case, but, you know, I really didn't get to say a lot of that to the jury. You know, I didn't get to present. They brought in experts that were not experts
Right.
and just convinced the jury that he would already be gone.
It's crazy to me that a company as big as Lyft, whom has hundreds of millions of dollars, if not
Mhm.
more, that like to me it takes a pretty like a sick person to try to even justify that, to try to even defend that. I mean, what attorney would be like, yeah, I'm going to take this case and I'm going to try to, that to me, I'm like, is
I
there
know.
any morals or any like,
Well, I just think it's that attorney's job, you know, they're hired to save their company that they work for, save them money. And so I don't really even blame the attorneys. I mean, it's just it is what it is, you know, with they're gonna try to get out. I remember like during the trial, they made a few different offers to me or to me and his dad, because whatever they awarded us, we were sharing. And of course the attorneys would get half of it and then we'd split the other half.
hmm
And you know, there was a few times they came with an offer and it was such a low amount of money. And um my son's father, Bill, said to me, he goes, you know, first of all, I don't need any money. He's very successful. He's like, I'm going to let you decide if you want to take any settlement and be done with this trial. And my answer to him was, they have not offered us life changing money. And losing Wyatt was life changing. So,
hmm
no, I'm not taking it because, you know, it's got to be life changing. And they just never did. And even the money we got really wasn't life changing for either one of us because we both had been successful. I could have sold my house and got the same amount of money. But, you know, it's at least it was something. I'm thankful for it, but you know, money is not going to replace my son.
no. No, and that's why I said I don't think it's not the dollar value, but it's like it's the principle. Like, don't come in and lowball and act like he wasn't worth anything because he had a diagnosis. So, like, if you would have just, I feel like if they would have just came to you with some big number in the beginning and been like, "We are so sorry," like, and it has
Yeah,
nothing to do with his what his life is quote unquote worth. Like, if they would have just left that out,
I
I think
know.
it could have been. I just think, and again, I wasn't there. I didn't know you then or the whole story, but I just feel like it probably could have been handled differently on a corporate business side, and instead of
Yeah.
being like, "He was worth X amount," I would have been like, "This is a tragedy. This is horrible. We know we can never bring your son back. That we'd like to offer you this," and then you could have maybe negotiated or figured something out or what, or maybe at that point you would have been like, "Yeah, fine." Like who knows? But I think I just think it's kind of gross to me that it's like putting the value on him.
It was unfortunate, and, I think my attorneys told us that we were really close to a settlement, but it was literally, like, the week COVID hit, and, when that hit and then nobody could go to trial, and that just gave everyone an advantage because there were nobody was going to court, and it just put everything on hold.
For a long, and it was on hold for a long time, not like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it really was. So,
Well, awful, awful. I think I'm gonna try to figure out. I'm gonna post online. If I'm gonna figure out how people can order a Lyft or an Uber and check the.
yes,
I'm
I
gonna
do
look
it
up.
all
I'm gonna
the
look
time.
up the steps so people can look up. If they
Yeah.
have 5 stars, is it because they have
Look
5 stars because of one
yeah,
ride, or do they done 100 rides?
so I think you just press on their profile picture and, where the car and their picture is and all that, and it'll tell you how many rides they've done and how much time, like if it's been a month or if it's been 10 years.
Right.
And
And
so
look, I
I've
mean,
canceled a lot since then. Like,
yeah.
since that happened, if they're been driving 3 months, I just cancel them.
And I mean, look, obviously accidents can happen with anyone, and the most experienced drivers, it's called an accident for a reason. But
Right.
I do think it is smart to be aware, and you know, I wouldn't. I mean, it never even crossed my mind. But I would have now knowing the story, I don't want to get in a car with someone who's been driving for a week.
No.
Like that's you know,
Yeah.
you don't. But again, you don't even think about it because this isn't really talked about. So I do think this is a great you know, to try to bring awareness that this is like, you're literally putting your life in someone else's hand when you get in a car with them.
Well, the other ironic thing about Wyatt and rideshare is, um, even though he grew up racing go-karts and riding dirt bikes, he had seizures his whole life. So he was never able to get a driver's license. So,
Right.
like, when he was 16, most kids are getting cars, so I took him to Hawaii and, we went surfing. He scared the crap out of me. He had a seizure out surfing. And,
God.
I'm, like, trying to get to him as fast as I can, and, um, so, he always my son gave me heart attacks my whole life with his damn seizures because he wasn't scared. He wasn't scared of
Right.
anything. He'd climb a cliff and, "Oh, I'll be alright, mom, don't worry." But the beauty of the rideshare, that came out, I think, when he was around well, yeah, it was out when he turned 16. So, he started using rideshare for everything, and he was always in a rideshare. So, I mean, way more than most people because he couldn't drive.
Right.
And, I can remember we were camping in my fifth wheel up in Tahoe, and I got up and I'm looking around the campground. I'm like, Where'd he go?" And someone said, "Oh, he caught an Uber to go get some breakfast."
Mm.
He had complete independence because of rideshare.
Yeah. And it
So,
sounds like, I mean, I never got to meet him, but it sounds like he did live life to the fullest.
he did.
And it
Yeah,
seems
he
like,
really
he didn't let it slow him down. Even if he'd get frustrated when he can't say a word, he'd say, fuck, he could say it. But it seems like he still was like, you
Yeah,
just said surfing, climbing a mountain. He still went and getting tattoos, like did all the fun things.
we traveled a lot. He went on a lot of trips. His dad got married the month before the accident, and, that was in France, I think, and so he was there. He went to Monte Carlo, and he really had so many great experiences that most kids at 22 don't get to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really did do a lot.
Well, a couple other things. First, I think we need to give a little shout out to your daughter because I also
Yes.
haven't met her, but
Mhm.
she is, from what I see online, I think she could. Well, I'm pretty confident she could beat the shit out of me. But she, what does she do?
So she's a wrestler in the WWE,
So,
and
like, a
she's on
big deal.
yeah, she's on Monday Night Raw. She'll be on TV tonight on Monday Night Raw. She's in Detroit today. And she's become more of a big deal in the last couple weeks because they changed her storyline. She was what they call a baby face, which is, a good girl. And she was with Alpha Academy. And now they've moved her storyline to now she's a heel, which is a bad girl. And she's joined the team called the Vision. And
Okay.
they're they're making, she just got married. And now they're
Yes, I
making
said.
a love affair in this storyline with someone in the Vision. I'm like, "What?" So,
That's so
yeah,
funny.
because of that, she's kind of all over the internet right now.
That's so cool. I feel like someday I'm gonna have to get her on here because I have that world. I mean, I just from watching it, I'm like, this is wild. Like it's
I know.
crazy.
We
It's
just
so
did a
cool.
podcast, I think it was last week with the Bella twins. Do you know who they are?
I've heard of them.
Bella, and it's just so funny because when she was always a dancer her whole life. And she became a Rams cheerleader and a Phoenix Suns dancer. And when she told me she was gonna switch to wrestling, I was like, "Why? You're a dancer." And I said, "How did you even get interested?" And I guess when she was a teenager, she was watching, their reality show, Total Divas,
Okay.
and she was always a fan of Nikki Bella, and so now, now they're her friends, and she's on their podcast.
That's so cool. It's so
Yeah, it
cool.
is.
So fun to watch. Um, well, before we end, do you like, I do think like we already talked about, you and I both have this live every day, have fun every day, say yes to everything. But like what advice do you think you could give, anyone out there who might be struggling with loss or anyone out there who, I don't know, doesn't have fun every day like we do?
Yeah, I would say, try to take the focus off of yourself. I think people, if they're really depressed and down, they're thinking too much about themselves. I always say, like, the best cure for depression is to just go volunteer or go do something for someone else that's less fortunate than you, because no matter how unfortunate you are, you can find someone that's less fortunate than you. And, but it's really hard for the parents that just lost their children. Like, I think all you can really do is go through that mourning phase. But also, like, if you have other children, remember that I know how my daughter felt with her dad and I. I think she felt like, what about me? Probably. I don't know if she felt that way, but I'm imagining she did, because she didn't really even want to be around us during that time because we were just so depressed and devastated. And, we still had her, but
Mhm.
I think it's hard for a lot of parents. I know some other friends that lost children, and I've tried to talk to, especially the moms, and say, you've still got this one and this one. Really put your attention on them and focus on them,
Right.
because it really doesn't do any good to just focus on what we lost, you know?
Right.
Focus on what we have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and my daughter wanted me she's so with the foundation we started, Cure ALD Foundation, I kind of passed the buck to a lady whose children just got diagnosed, and my
Okay.
daughter helping her and promoting it. So one of the things they're doing I think it's on September 20th. Yes, they're doing a fundraiser, um, and it's a race. It's like a 5K, I think. And that's September 20th of this year. And her Instagram is Cure ALD Together, but she took over the name Cure ALD Foundation.
Okay.
So,
Well, I'm going to
anyway,
put all of that in the show notes. And so everyone
okay,
can, and I'll put the links and all the stuff. So we'll put all
okay,
of that in the show notes so people can find that.
yeah,
And we'll make sure we can, if anyone wants to donate, we will have all those resources there.
yes,
And yeah, I guess, everyone out there, make sure when you are renting Ubers, Lyfts, any kind of ride share that you just do take the extra 30 seconds to just, do a little check.
yeah. And listen to your intuition. If you get in a car, even if they had a good rating, if they're driving erratically, I mean, I've been in Lake Havasu. I got in one where they ran a red light. And I'm like, pull over.
Yeah. Just get out. Yeah. Just
I'm
get out. Like,
I don't have to, I'll call another one to get where I'm going.
yeah, I
But
agree. So everyone listen to your intuition, check your
Mhm.
thing and just be aware of it.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for telling your story. Thank you for sharing that. And I hope I see you soon and we're back to our dancing and
I know, we need
getting on bars and
to
tables.
All right. Sounds
All
good.
right. All right, everyone. I will see you next Tuesday.